Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Coach's Corner, a special edition of the Coach's Corner as we prepare for the playoffs. With me, as always, to my right or my left, the way you're looking at, is the coach, Ian Bain. Tonight, we're joined by two special guests, Sam Reese and Ryan Martin, two guys that I'm sure will be getting paid to do this one day and not be doing it for likes on Facebook or Twitter. All right, fellas, welcome. Let's get started. Let's get right into it. Let's get into Milford. The first half, Coach, I've seen it compared a lot of times to like a prize fighter, filling each other out, two defenses. What do you think?
Well, I thought pretty highly of our defense going in, so that end of things, I don't think I was too surprised at. I think offensively, though, we had over 300 yards of offense. We had lots of chances to score. We just didn't quite capitalize when we needed to. And obviously Milford has a pretty good defense, too, so we knew it wasn't going to be easy. I think the difference was in some games we kind of hit in the big moments, and we were just, maybe just a hair off on Friday of getting touchdowns instead of field goals. But I thought we did all right. I don't think there was any sort of feeling out. We sort of knew what we were going to get from them and had a plan. We just could execute it maybe just a little bit better.
Yeah, Coach, you talked about that plan. Defensively, it was a lot different than against Attleboro. Attleboro scoring on their first drive, and then now against Milford, you forced them to punt on their first two drives. Yeah. How impactful was that correction on defense to make stops early on in the game?
I think it's really important because obviously I think in any sport, in any endeavor, you want to do that with confidence and play with confidence. So obviously getting the confidence up early. But I think, too, Attleboro had done some things maybe that we weren't expecting them to do, so there was an adjustment period. And you see that sometimes in games where, a team will come out and have a successful drive, and then they might not score again. In the case of Milford, they kind of gave us, I think, exactly what we were planning for and ready for. And, they had some wrinkles, too. It wasn't all the same, but there wasn't anything schematically very different. And you have to remember, too, Attleboro had about 4 or 5 guys coming back off of injury, which allowed them to do some stuff. In Milford, they kind of were able to just be themselves. So I think that helped too.
All right, so Coach, the first half's a struggle like we just talked about. I think we doubled their yards. Mm-hmm. We probably had about 10 more plays than they had. We dominated field position, but yet you go into the half, it's 3-3. Are you frustrated at this point? Are you sitting there saying, all right, we know we can do what we have to do. We just got to finish it off?
Yeah, I think the time for frustration comes after the game. I think if you allow yourself to be frustrated in the moment, it's going to take away from your performance that night. So I think we looked at instead at the positives that we were in the red zone a couple of times, and we're just a play or two away, and we're right there. So let's just stay with what kind of got us here. Some adjustments, yes, but I think we were feeling all right, and I think we could have been better, but we weren't worried, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Coach, on the flip side, focusing on the defense in that first half, it seems like right out of the gate, they came prepared. And so how much do you praise their execution? Because it definitely seemed like you got the pressure to their quarterback, Cornelius, often, and he definitely seemed quite uncomfortable whenever you forced him out of the pocket.
Yeah, I think we did a really good job kind of scheming up pressure. We're a pretty athletic team. I think we had a chance that on Friday to really show some of that athleticism, and I think too, we were down a player, Anthony Sosi, who's been an awesome player for us, and he's done so many things just in the last 2 years. Even in the spring, I think he played half a dozen positions or more, including defensive end, and sort of took on a real leadership role in our secondary, and still is a leader on our defense. But not having him, I think maybe guys knew that they needed to step up even that much more. And I was happy with the response from our defense, but I think, I think we looked like maybe we played a little bit inspired to kind of trying to pick up the slack for Anthony because he's such a tremendous player.
Yeah, you're...
All right, so Coach, we come out of the half. It's 3-3. That brings us to our Glenn Farmer play of the day. You'll notice we aren't at the Glenn Farmer studios today. We got bumped for the Phantom Gourmet, which I completely understand. That brings us to the play of the day. We come out, and right off the bat, you hit Shane Kindred on what looked like an underneath drag, breaks the tackle. I'm certain that play's not supposed to be a big hitter. It turns into a big hitter with a missed tackle.
Yeah, it can be a big hitter, but that's part of it. Is obviously it's a play action. Mac certainly had a wonderful evening, a lot of touches, a lot of yards. So we tried to maybe, one of the things with your boot action or your keeper game is, obviously if a defense is flowing and real fast, that's when you want to use it. And when are they most fresh? Then at the start of a half or start of a drive. So we had, so some things in that first half we wanted to get to, and maybe we just didn't quite get a chance to get to them. And that was one of the things. So we said we're just going to start with it and see what happens. And obviously the nice thing about that is, yes, it might not always be a big hitter, but it's one guy. You sort of isolate and you sort of have an expectation that somebody has to make a play for you, and Shane's really good at doing that. And there's also kind of a sneaky, really good block that we had out there too by Bill Tracy, where he doesn't do anything to get a penalty, but he does just enough to sort of get in the way and disrupt and make that angle kind of weird. And then Shane's pretty fast and a really good athlete, and it's nice when they make you look good. Everybody thinks it's a good play call, but really just a great play by Shane and Jared.
So we tried 2 Mac runs, and then Tracy on what looks to be the same exact play. You got Kindred coming
very
underneath,
similar.
and Tracy coming over the top for a touchdown, and we're up 10-3.
Yeah, very similar play. Same family, just a little different conceptually, but and a good job by Jared too of not assuming, because we hit Shane just a couple plays before. Well, this is going to be open again. Going through his progression and reading up to the next level and finding Bill in the back of the end zone, and great catch, good blocking, and again when Mac's sort of the focal point, which he is so often, that's going to pull a lot of eyes and a lot of attention. And the safety that should have carried Bill was playing the run game, so we were fortunate there to get him in the back of the end zone, and I think a touchdown there really was what we needed, and turned out to be all we really needed. But that was a huge moment, because another field goal, I don't know, I feel like actually Milford probably would have had the momentum.
Yeah, a big drive coming right out of the half. We saw, as you mentioned, 71-yarder on the first play, offensively coming out of the half. It's kind of been a theme of this team all year, is big plays and big drives to end halves. Why is it so important to strike in those moments, specifically at the end of the first half and second half? And how does that change the landscape of the game as it continues on?
I think, especially with the halves, we talk about the middle 8, the kind of last 4 minutes of the half, the first 4 minutes of the second half, and especially if you're getting the football, that can be a chance to get a double score or anything like that. But I think too, I think it's really important because you have time to have a conversation at the half and to make your adjustments. In the game, it can be harder to make a wholesale change. Hey, we want to run more of this scheme. We want to do this a little better. Especially in the flow of the game, and as the head coach, I don't always get to be a part of those conversations. And our staff does a really good job of making in-game adjustments. But coming out of the half is a chance where you got to get on the same page, you got to talk to all the players. It's kind of a calm environment where you can sort of take a moment and take a breath. And you have to take advantage of those. It's like the opening drive of a game. They might come out in something different, same thing at the half, but you've had a chance to communicate and really get on the same page with what you want to do. So I think you got to take advantage of those opportunities in those moments.
So, Coach, Milford goes 3 and out. We then go on a 12-play drive that features about 9 Gula runs for 46, a couple of Kindred catches for about 28, but we result in no points.
Yeah.
What was going on there?
Bad play calling by me. No, it's just I forget if that was the drive where we had the hold on the touchdown that got called back.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't a hold; it was a good play, and that should have been a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, you backed up a little bit more, and that changes things. But in the first half, we had another nice drive, and we had a catch that wasn't called a catch. Not to blame the officials, I'm just saying there were moments where, if you just did it a little better, maybe the block looks cleaner, maybe the catch looks cleaner. Maybe you don't let the refs have a chance to mess it up, and now you're talking about a different, I feel like we left points on the board, and that was a drive that I thought we left points on the board. But, the thing is, again, when you just kind of watch the game, and games kind of have a way of dictating themselves early and kind of playing out a certain way, we could have probably been more aggressive, but I didn't think that we had to. I think that, we were up by the 7, and, the worst thing that could happen would be to do something that really put them back into the game. And I think that we could just play our game, play our style, and not, rock the boat too much, so to speak.
Yeah, Coach, so that drive ended with, I want to say, a little under 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Even though, of course, it was disappointing that you put no points on the board that drive, I still felt, from an outside perspective watching, that it was a reason to be optimistic going into the fourth quarter in regards to the offense, because you were getting Kindred involved more and more. Gula was obviously getting a lot of touches. Did you share that same sentiment at that point in time?
Yeah, I felt really good about where we were. Obviously we just need to make maybe one more play or two.
Yeah.
But and I think we were in control of the field position. Aside from one play, our defense really controlled the game. And sometimes you gotta coach and play as to the style that the game's allowing you to win it. And I thought we were on the path to winning. We just had to manage it the right way.
I think the defense came out and had 2 3-and-outs right off the bat.
Yeah.
Coming out of the half.
I think there was only one first down in the second half for Milford, and it was on a coverage we just didn't do a good enough job of communicating from the sideline.
All right, so that's going to bring us to the Glenn Farmer drive of the day. The drive starts at the tail end of the third quarter and eats about 6 minutes of the clock into the fourth quarter. 8 Gula runs, huge offsides on 4th and 2, where we get him to jump. And Portese ends it with a 25-yard field goal. Gives you a little breathing room. It's nice to have a kicker you can rely on.
Yeah, and especially because Milford's so potent on offense and they can be pretty quick strike, as we almost saw. We really felt that we needed to make it a 2-score game to feel not comfortable, but to feel in control. And the other thing is the way that we were able to manage the clock and the ball. They had to kind of change how they work, because I think they have a really good running back, and that back kind of became a non-factor as the game became a 2-score game, and I think that again allows us to play more. It makes them play one-dimensional on offense, but then people don't talk about, well, it lets you play one-dimensional on defense too, because you can be a little more aggressive and make certain calls that maybe you wouldn't call if there was a 50-50 run pass type of thing.
Yeah, you mentioned dominating time of possession, keeping the ball out of Tyler Lane's hands for Milford. How important is it to win that time of possession, play the game on your terms, and going off that, how much easier is that with having number 21 in the backfield?
21 in our O-line, and I think that's important. I'm not a big time of possession, because if you look even at Taunton, we got killed in time of possession and killed in plays, and I thought we had enough explosive plays that we were okay in the end. But I think controlling the game, and there's a way you can tell and a way you can feel that you can. Like Attleboro, we led the whole time. I felt like we never had control of the game. Other games, I felt that we had control of the game. Even when we've been behind, I felt like we were in control. So Friday, I felt like we could control a lot of things. We still had a lot of calls left, and I think our kids do a good job of picking up third downs. Even if you end up punting, that extra 3 or 4 plays, now that adds in and bleeds to the clock, and you've got to convert and get first downs at the end of games to win them.
So Milford's next possession ends on they have a big 37-yard pass, but then right off the bat, a couple plays later, Will Davis makes a great interception. Luke, one of those Davises. There's 3 of them. Luke makes a great interception, the toe drag, pick off in the end zone, turnover there. Martins gets a huge sack on the following series.
Yeah.
They turn it over on downs, 13-3 final.
That's it, and that's, it might not have been the prettiest game, but again, when you have 2 teams in the top 15 in the state and they're playing, it wasn't going to be a blowout. And I think if they were scoring a bunch of points, we probably would have scored. If we went on a run, they probably would have gone on a run. It was just there was a style to that game, and I thought you really saw the physicality of both teams on display, and fortunate to get out of there with the win.
Yeah, Coach, I thought it was really fitting for that final Milford possession to end on a Jonathan Martin sack, because obviously you guys were getting to Cornelius all night long, and the defense just had a standout performance. So I was wondering, heading into the playoffs, just how big is it knowing that you have a defense capable of really stepping up even when your offense really isn't firing on all cylinders?
I'd say it's a great equalizer, and I think it takes a lot of pressure off of the offense. It lets you, we talked about explosive plays. It lets you kind of take some of those chances. Whereas, if you're playing a ball control game with the intention of keeping the ball out of the opponent's hands, you don't want to give the ball back, too quick. And I've never felt that way with this team. And I think, it speaks to their preparation and the coaching staff's work and all of that. And I think it was fitting, too, that Martin's got the sack there because, he basically iced the Mansfield game. He's been a part of icing a couple of these games. He's just a terrific player.
All right, Coach, I'm going to turn do something my ego normally doesn't allow me to do, and I'm going to turn the show over to these 2 guys. Let them ask you a couple questions on their own, or maybe give you the pulse of the school.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, yeah, I'd love to just go back to Cornelius for a second. At 6'2", 235, he's built like the high school variation of the fridge, I feel, playing the quarterback position. So what was the plan that you guys came in with to try and stop him, a former defensive end playing quarterback? And how did that adjust after how you saw Coach Olson was planning to use him?
Yeah, I mean he's an athletic specimen. He's built like a DN, a linebacker, Tim Tebow.
Much like myself.
So I think it was just really about trying. I think any quarterback, whatever, try to get them a little out of balance, get them a little uncomfortable. Looking at, for example, where do they throw the ball from a lot? How long does it take to get the ball out? And then from there you just kind of try to build your plan. For example, if they're getting the ball out really quick, it doesn't make a lot of sense to blitz a ton of guys because So how can you be efficient with 4 or 5 man pressures? And even if not getting sacks, but getting pressures, making them move to their left if they're only ever moving from the right. Like, this particular athlete, I don't, maybe 1 or 2 throws moving to their left all year, if any. Very, very limited. 80-something% from the pocket, and then the rest were to the right. And like I said, maybe 1 outlier on a scramble left. So
He had a lot of overthrows. Is that because of the pressure coming at him?
I think, it's hard to say. I think he's a very athletic passer, and he's obviously, up in the top of the league in touchdowns and all of that. I think the pressure, though, when you got to just speed things up even just a half a second more, and, that can definitely make a difference, for sure. And I don't feel like he ever got into a rhythm. And I think any quarterback, if you can just, because once they get going, it's over. So getting quarterbacks just to not get in a rhythm, I think, is a huge part of any game plan for any quarterback, and you just hope that it works a little bit. And you can disrupt enough to keep them out of a rhythm.
Yeah, Coach, last year, well, I guess it was half a year ago, back in the spring, in Jared's junior year, in that Mansfield game, Ryan and I were actually talking about on Friday. I think he threw a couple of interceptions that really proved to be costly, and not only in this game against Milford did he do a great job protecting the ball, but really all season long, we've been seeing him make really intelligent decisions. So can you just speak on that maturation of Jared in such a short period of time, really?
Yeah, I mean, even last year, obviously the Mansfield game, a couple picks, but they had heavy pressure, right? Yeah. They were able to keep us really off balance. But I think that's just a natural maturation of any player. Right. I think also when you have a great defense and you have really good teammates, you don't feel like you have to do too much. And I think, just another year as a starter, another year in the system. He's got 18 touchdowns. I think only the 1 interception, maybe 2, but that was, I said throw it because I'd rather throw it and get a pick than a punt, and he did that. So, I mean, he doesn't care about that, though. Like, that's the thing. Obviously, he cares about taking care of the football, but in terms of, the stats and stuff, that's not important. I think he's just, he's seen a lot of football, and especially all in 1 year. He's a kid that knows all the 7-on-7s and all the lifts and all the workouts. So I think it's just it's kind of like the 10,000 hours rule. I'm not sure that we're at 10,000 hours yet, but the closer you get to that, the better off you are. And I think you're seeing that.
Well, I think it's also huge that he got an extra season of varsity reps, whereas Tommy and Nick.
And Gordo,
I think they're both right into the fire kids.
Yeah, the only 2-year guy we had is Novi.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at your defense, it looked like Milford was really comfortable with getting the skilled players the ball really quickly, trying to get it out of the quarterback's hands as fast as possible. How did you guys have success really limiting his first options and forcing him to take more time in the pocket, more time with the ball, and look for his second or third reads?
I think we have really good athletes. I think we match up really well with some of the things that they wanted to do. I think our kids put a lot of time in. Our defensive backs coaches do a great job every week working on man coverage and ball drills, and I think that we do a nice job too as a staff of figuring out how to mix up our looks. So we're never really in the same look 2 times in a row. Obviously we have calls we go back to and things like that, but we're always and it's all planned too. It's not random. It's not helter-skelter. It's all part of a plan. It's all part of a system, and we try to I think the hardest thing coaching wise is when you play a team that keeps you guessing. And I think there's a responsible way you can do that and not be reckless. But I think that was part of it too. Is that we gave a lot of looks that were not vanilla and not just plain looks. They were not all exotic, but they were pretty elaborate and detailed. And I think that makes a difference, especially when Milford's offense like ours, it puts a lot of emphasis on your quarterback play, and we did a good job.
Yeah, Coach, just one more quick question. I was able to talk to Jonathan Martins after the game, actually, and two quotes really stood out to me that he said. And one of them was he said, we love being the underdog as the team and facing adversity. Mm-hmm. And then he also said in that same sentence, but we're ready to get back to work tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering, having that underdog mentality, you guys may be the 1 seed, but I don't think many coming into the season expected you guys to go undefeated in the regular season. But also having that mindset of, we still have bigger goals ahead with the playoffs on tap. Having that mindset of just going back to work tomorrow and not really celebrating this win too much, because I feel like a lot of teams after big wins against Milford and then earlier against Mansfield would maybe have a lapse and maybe celebrate that win too much. But it seems like you guys are just completely focused on the task and at what's at stake.
I mean, that's what we try to do. I mean, the first part of it is the underdog role. I mean, I think, and it's obviously meant to be a compliment, but so many people said, "Oh, wow, what a schedule, huh?" It's like we don't deserve to play these teams. Like, I think that's where we are as a program. We're not going to win every game the rest of my time here or anything like that. Eventually, we're going to lose again. Right, next year or the year after, whenever that day is, doesn't matter. But you schedule where you see your football team, and that's where I think we all see ourselves is in that conversation, and I think too, like, we just like being the underdog because Franklin's not a household name. It's still Mansfield, it's still KP, it's still Everett, it's still Zavarian, and so on. So, it takes years to get rid of that, and that's where just like you just get used to being the underdog in life. I think I like having a chip on my shoulder, and I think when you boil it down, I got a pretty good life, a pretty easy life by most standards, but you have to find a way to put a chip on your shoulder. And the size of your chip, I think, it really impacts your motivation, your drive, because I think the worst thing you can be is complacent and comfortable. And however, you've got to kind of manufacture that, and it gets hard to do, especially through the grind of a season. But, I mean, there's a reason that Tom Brady is undoubtedly the best quarterback of all time, yet he still sees himself as the underdog.
Right. And
he always finds a way to motivate himself, whether it's his age, a new team, a new coach, a new contract, or this or that. He's always got that. So, I think that we're going to be underdogs for a long time, regardless of what we do and the noise we make. But we see ourselves as underdogs because that's the outsider's view of us. But we see ourselves pretty good. And then back to work tomorrow. That's just row the boat. Like you can't sit there and feel good about anything. You just got to keep working, because the minute you stop working, somebody's going to take your job. Somebody's going to take your spot. Somebody's going to beat you.
Somebody outwork you.
And that's life. Like you get comfortable, and things start to slip. And then whether that's in your marriage, whether that's us being a parent, whether that's in your job as an adult, you get comfortable. That's a bad place to be. So you got to get back to work.
Guys, that's it. I give you guys an hour and a half. You took 20 minutes. Coach, the MIAA, as is their want, they decided to wait an extra 24, 48, 60-something hours before releasing the game. But we get Braintree at home Friday night. What does Braintree bring?
Good old school football, I think. Wing T, tough defense. I don't know anything about the community of Braintree, but the kids play with sort of a blue-collar mentality. I think we've played them a couple times. I always thought they played really hard, really gritty, tough football team. And even when we played them in 2016 and 2017 and now, I think they're a team that gets better as the year goes on. So I think, kind of like Attleboro, they're a different team now than they were weeks 2 or 3. Looking at their last 2 games, you could see the improvement. You could see how well they're playing and how hard they're playing, and their coach has been at it a long time too. So we're going to have our hands full. Fortunately, even with the MIA, we kind of the only team that we prepared for leading up to Monday was Braintree. We really didn't look at anybody else.
It's not like 6 teams that you're sitting there going,
it was really just a question mark of what they would maybe do with a team that didn't make it, and that was Attleboro, and we kind of figured, well, it could be Weymouth, but most likely Attleboro's, and we just kind of took a leap of faith. So, we kind of got ready for some Wing T stuff. So even going out to Monday, just kind of was like, think this is who we got. Let's just go with it, and if we get somebody else, we get somebody else. And, obviously we knew by the time we hit the practice field, but we had already prepared at least for that opponent. So we're fortunate. I know some teams prepared for other opponents, and then it changed on them. And I know even in the volleyball tournament, not that that's football, and I don't think it impacted Franklin at all, but I want to say Foxborough volleyball, they were set to play somebody, and then they changed that. Now, granted, the preparation's probably a little different in that sport, but still, and you know what? It was a real pain on Sunday and Monday, and it is what it is now. Everybody was in the same boat. It's not like anybody had the insider information that we know of. Anyways.
Yeah, you mentioned that you haven't played this Braintree team since 2016, 2017. How difficult is it to formulate a game plan against an unfamiliar opponent, especially now in a playoff game?
I think it's hard because there's only so much you can see from tape. Yep. Size is hard. It's kind of a little deceptive. Speed is very deceptive on film. So a lot of times you got to eyeball those things kind of the night of. The good thing is, though, you get a lot of sense of scheme and kind of what teams are doing situationally and things like that. You can get a good read on the kicking game and stuff like that. So I think, as long as you just have respect for everybody, the underestimating size or speed shouldn't be an issue. And then you just prepare for everything that you can control in the week. And when you get out to Friday, game speed's going to kind of take care of itself, and we'll go from there.
I know it's nice to be at home. I know where I work in Clinton, they're worried about having to go to Nantucket to play a game. But
yeah, Norton's going to Pittsfield, and there's some interesting
matchups.
But the good thing is, if we do everything right, we won't have to drive anywhere.
Very good, guys. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, so that'll do it for us tonight at the Coach's Corner. We'll be back here next Wednesday night reviewing the Braintree playoff game. So for Ryan, Sam, the coach, myself, Luke Davis, Jake Davis, Will Davis, Kathy Davis, and Pete Davis, that's a wrap from the Coach's Corner. And we'll see you next Wednesday night. Hey, you got to buy your tickets online or you're not getting in the door Friday night, so get them online. Take care.